Good day, fellow grognards, and welcome to part 2 of the campaign playthrough for Graviteam's latest DLC, Fateful Strike. Playing as the Wehrmacht, we fared the best we could under that crushing weight of the Soviet armored spearhead, and while it's true we're mainly composed of infantry and undergunned AT, we've managed to whittle away and destroy nearly 20 red tanks. We did give up this main town down here on our southernmost flank, but we did so begrudgingly, and now at 2 o'clock, we have 2 of our own panzer battle groups coming up for reinforcements. You can see one right here, and our other one is, I believe he's up here to the north. Yes, he's right there, so he'll be there shortly. Now, before I started recording, I made sure that every battle group was supplemented with appropriate support units, and if you're curious how to do that, you can check out part 1. But I did learn a few new things from subscribers that are definitely worth mentioning. First, you can actually go to a battle group on screen. So let's go check out this battle group right here. You can see he's in poor shape. And if I wanted to go directly to it, rather than selecting this right here, then this, and trying to recall it from memory, you can just use the middle mouse button. Awesome, awesome tip. And that one was from Afnan Zaran, Empire's Arsenal Legend. And I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but those were the 2 subscribers that mentioned that tip to me. It's an excellent one. Hitting that middle mouse button will take you right to that battle group. So for instance, let's go ahead and check out this battle group right here. It's in poor shape, has a platoon in red as you can see, so we'll go ahead and click that middle mouse button. Takes you right to them. Unfortunately, if you try to replace that platoon with a reserve, you can see we're depleted of all available reserves. The second tip I've learned, this one's from Ian Yohari, and I'm sorry if I mutilated that one as well, but you can actually see what reserves you have in each division. Right here you'll see where it says reserves. You just go ahead and put your mouse over it, you'll see a tooltip. And unfortunately in our situation, it's usually just artillery pieces or trucks. And that's fine. I mean, we can use these trucks to get our troops around. Ideally we'd like to have infantry in this situation, especially because we're on defense, but nothing we can do about that. A third tip we have, and this one's from Thunder Chief, and I had no idea about this one, and it's an excellent one. You can go to a battle group, so like let's go to our battle group right here. You can see the artillery spotter that's assigned for support, and you can right-click right here and select from available off-map artillery. Before I thought that you were just assigned whatever HQ had, whatever they had in reserve. That's not the case. You actually have selections sometimes. You can see right here we had those rocket launchers. We did deplete all the ammo from it, so now all we have left is the regular 10.5 centimeter LEFHs, but you do have the option to select your artillery, so just keep that in mind. We'll return here to the main strategic map. Now, as far as operational strategy goes, I'm stoked that we have this tank battle group right here, and this tank battle group coming up. As you can see, it's a ton of panzers. I think there's mainly Panzer IIIs, a few Panzer IVs scattered in there. Let's check. Yeah, so we have some Panzer IIIs, Panzer IVs, and then its sister platoon. We've got the same deal going on. Now we need to take note that the majority of these are Panzer IIIs, and that they only had a 5 centimeter gun. And if you remember, that means effective range against medium and heavy armor, 200 meters or less. So that's going to give us some big penetration problems against those Soviet T-34s and KVs. Not only that, but the Panzer IV, which you think is going to be a much better unit than the Panzer III against armor, it's not actually the case. That was originally designed as a fortification and soft target buster. And it did have a 75mm gun, so bigger than the 5 centimeter, but it was that short barrel, and it was almost useless against anything other than light armor. Obviously, when the Germans ran into the KVs and the T-34s, that line of thinking changed, and they went ahead and upgraded the Panzer IV. They called it the F2 and stuck a 75mm long barrel on it. As you can see right here, we have one F2, but you can see how limited those were. They were just coming into supply on the frontline troops with the Wehrmacht at this time, and you can see we just have this one. Most of our Panzer IVs are going to be the short barrel, and then we have the Panzer IIIs. Keep in mind, again, 200 meters or less, so we're going to have to go ahead and really going to have to be thinking about ambushes in all of our defensive situations. So our question becomes, what do we do with this front line down here? Now, some of our frontline units are doing okay, especially right here on the eastern side. As you can see from our scouting, we don't have too many armored units pushing through. You do have these 2 armored units that can cause some problems, but our units over here are really depleted. As well as down here, there's really no point in holding these points. There is an objective point right here, but it's not essential to hold it. So what I'm thinking possibly about doing, and this is where most of the decisions you make or break the game, right here on the strategic map. I'm thinking about possibly moving these units to the west having them fall back and kind of fold back in on themselves like in a fishhook shake, where they'll get really good interior lines. And not only that, but it's going to decrease the size of our front line. Our troops don't have to be stretched out this far. It'll buy us some time. It'll allow us to fall back. Sure, we're giving up that ground. It's going to be giving up that key point objective right here, but we can afford to do that. I believe in fighting concentrated. You know, in my opinion, it's always best to do that rather than piecemeal. I'd rather bring up these tanks and have all of our units consolidated so we can strike back, really bring down that sledgehammer at the same time. Now, obviously, you don't want to do that if you're pressed for time or if there's a tactical advantage to expediting. I don't think that applies in this case. And we still have objectives we can afford to give up if we have to. And that's one of the cool features, you know, about Graviteam, is that it's really hard to pinpoint a real meta on this game. Of course, some of that's owed to the language barrier, with the devs being inside of Kharkov themselves, but a lot of it's just where this is more of a sim than a game, and so finding any hard rules that stick can be tough. It's really situational. I'm really interested to see what you think in the comments of this decision and any other ones I've made. We'll see if it comes back and bites me. So we'll go ahead and make these troops fall back, and we'll go ahead and consolidate on our new defensive line with these panzers. Now, it's worth noting that there's a new order system that's been implemented on the strategic map, and it's called the indirect order system, and you can engage that in the options. It is optional. Now, whereas before it was strictly turn-based, and it's still turn-based as you can see, but you had an unrealistic first mover advantage against the AI. Basically, you move your troops, and then the AI moves his troops after you. With this new system, it tries to rectify that advantage by making it simulate real-time movements. And basically, you're just imagining that you're issuing movement orders to your battle groups at the same time as the enemy commander, and then when you hit in turn, both sides start carrying out those orders simultaneously rather than you getting to go first as before. So like now, if you've been racing for the same objective point and he had mechanized units compared to your foot soldiers, he's probably going to get there first because he has the faster unit, and before you would beat him to it. Now, what makes this more difficult is in that situation, for example, your troops are probably gonna approach that spot unaware and be caught with their pants down. And so now there's a new mechanic where you won't be able to place your troops in the deployment phase of the engagement. They'll just be stuck wherever they happen to be at the time the engagement begins. Because Graviteam ultimately is going for a simulation. It's not about total control, and you're always gonna try your best, but there's factors that's always gonna get out of your hands. Things are going to get sticky, and I myself, this is my first time using the indirect order system, so I'm probably going to screw some things up. I don't understand all the rules to it, but I'm just going to go ahead and attribute that to the confusion of the battlefield, and I'll just roll with it. Okay, so on to turn 5. It's 5 o'clock at night, as you can see right here. We've managed to pull our troops back some. I really wanted to get these troops over here pushed up a little bit more northerly so we could have that U-shape, be really consolidated, have those interior lines. It didn't quite work out how I expected. I did have some units that were routed. We did lose our only Stug that was remaining. It was destroyed. It was actually abandoned. He got lost in action. But I think overall we're looking decent so far. We have those two Panzer battle groups, one right here, and then the commander for that battle group is right here. So the question is right now, are we going to go ahead and go on the offensive, or are we going to go ahead and try to save that for one more turn? We still have the key point advantage, but I don't know. I mean, this is something you have to think about. So I'm going to go ahead and start moving these troops on the map, and we'll see what ends up going on. March him out there. Put these guys back as well. Because I really want to swing around to the east and come in just from behind through here. Sweep them this way through the flank. These guys' objective here is just going to be to hold and not give up any key points. Alright, so I'm happy with what we've done here. And again, I'm just trying to consolidate these units on the western side of our flanks, try to get them to hold those objective points that we still have in our possession. I don't want them to advance, I just want them to hold their position. We're going to go ahead and take our tank battle groups, and we're going to hold out for this turn so we can consolidate them. We're just going to see what the Red Army does. If they decide to press the advance, I think we can hold a lot of our positions, and on the next turn we can go ahead and counterattack right in right here through the southeast, just come out and sweep them west. So we can end our turn. We're moving on to turn 6 now, about the midpoint of the campaign. It is 8 o'clock in the evening, so we're running out of daylight fast. We probably have one more good turn left of fighting before darkness completely envelops us, and I'd like to go ahead and try to get that counterattack rolling with that one turn that we have before the sun goes down, just because when darkness does arrive, advancing any kind of offensive operation is extremely risky, just for the simple fact that you're opening yourself up to ambushes. You can just roll right over top of the enemy. AT can be right on top of you, just meters away. You can never see him coming, and they'll just blow you open. So I'd like to go ahead and capture one of these objective points in our counterattack right now and be able to hold it through the night and add to our point total. Now the question is, of course you want to go ahead and fight concentrated because it opens you up to defeat in detail if you don't. And we have these two panzer battle groups right here. And I think that we have about, we have about 20 tanks. So it's a formidable force. Granted, they're the Panzer IIIs with the 5cm guns, and then we have the Panzer IVs, most of them the short barrel. We only have one or two of the Osif F2s. We're going to go ahead and try to punch through here, sweep around southeast, punch through the west, come in through the side with that flanking maneuver. And, looking at it on paper, it's really a tall order. And I know they probably got 50 or 60 tanks right up there in the center. So it's either just going to lay there and take it like a little bitch, or we're going to try to do something about it. I'm going to try to do something crazy. Probably only a 10% chance of it working, but I mean, this is a difficult campaign. We're going to swing around through the back, try to cut them off completely, and encircle them. Is it going to happen? Probably not, but I'd rather do that than do nothing. So we're going to start over here at the east, swing around, try to get this objective point before nightfall. Then we can focus on these tanks over here, where there's not as high a number of them. They're not as concentrated. Maybe take out a bunch of these right now, go ahead and destroy them in detail, and then we can go ahead and focus on the rest when we punch through those lines. We'll be able to come through two different directions, maybe do a pincer on this main town. So I think that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go ahead and get these troops, my reinforcements set up. Now, one thing that does irritate me a little bit about Graviteam is that you can't stack counters. I don't like that. I mean, I understand why Graviteam does it. They don't want to put too many units in one area and make it a big mess. But if you could just stack 2 units on each one of those points, I think that'd be awesome, because it would open you up to doing true defense in depth, or just throwing your units on the front line. And I think it would add an element of strategy that's not present in the game right now. But, what can you do? So now I've got our troops repositioned as well as I can. Unfortunately, we are running out of reserves. Any reserves that we do have tend to be trucks, and we have those deployed onto the front line anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and get our attack maneuvers going. I'm going to go ahead and start with this guy right here. I'm going to have him attack here, go through that sweeping motion, try to have this portion of our line, the center portion of our line, hold out as long as we can. They're going to continue to get pushed back by all those tanks, but they're just going to go ahead and do that delaying action while these tanks swing around here and we take them from behind. I think I am going to go ahead and move this commander out of the way. Maybe, and we do have 188 left that survived. I'm going to go ahead and move him over to Borky itself, just as a last line of defense in case it's needed. Go ahead and I'll end the turn. Alright, so over here in our eastern flank is where things might finally be starting to turn around for us. As you can see, the enemy is comprised of these 2 infantry battle groups, which have already seen action, as well as this tank battle group, which we did see earlier, and it's not too heavy of an armored presence. Meanwhile, on our hands, we have this fresh Panzer battle group. I'd like to have this Panzer battle group as well, but he looks like he's not going to be available for this engagement. That's fine. We have these 2 infantry battle groups, the 132nd Infantry Regiment from the 44th Division. They're completely fresh. They have some AT with them, and this infantry battle group is panicked, but they're still comprised of a solid group of soldiers. They still have a lot of their troops remaining. These battle groups right here are completely wiped out. They're not going to be effective, but that's okay. I think these 2 infantry battle groups and this Panzer battle group will give us pretty good odds to push the Soviets back before the night starts to fall. Now, one thing I do want you to take note of is that they are attacking, and since we're also attacking as well, I'm going to hold back for a bit, let the enemy probe, and see what they're going to throw at us. I do think we're going to be able to counterattack and go ahead and push through, but I just want to go ahead and see what they're going to bring at us first, so we'll go ahead and hop into it and see what happens. Okay, so we have all of our troops lined out on the initial order screen along a very wide front. I just want to have these units up here in advance to try and scout and see where the enemy is going to probe and launch its attack. I want to see if we can go ahead and counterattack once the Soviets do launch their initial assault, and it is a little bit darker than I would have liked, but that's okay, we can manage. I have most of my AT units set up for ambush positions. For instance, I have a PaK 5cm right here, and I'm hoping some of those armored units will come right down here through this road and we can open up on them from close range. We have 2 3.7 centimeters as well, right here and right here. That's the only 5 centimeter we have right there. Now moving over to the left side of the flank, you can see we're composed of mainly infantry, but on the far end of that flank we do have some AT stationed as well. All of my troops are, as I said, set up into ambush positions how I like them. I have machine gunners placed back here with a clear field of fire across this field in case we do need to fall back some. And the only thing that didn't really work advantageously for us is our tank setup. The tanks were actually in transit during the initial order setup, so I didn't get the chance to place them, and you can see they're kind of just placed here haphazardly. To mitigate that, you can see I queued my orders by using the shift key, and I'm going to have them move by road to here, and then swing back around down here. And basically I'm having the entire platoon just swing around behind that tree line because I don't want them to engage at long range against that armor. Remember, we're going up against T-34s and KV-1s here, and we have Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs, and really the Panzer IIIs for the most part are going to be better against that heavy armor than the Panzer IVs because most of those Panzer IVs are not the F2, and they have the short barrels. So we're going to go ahead and get those tanks behind the tree line. I'll go ahead and start the engagement, and as soon as we run into some action, I'll go ahead and get back with you. And it looks like immediately we have some Soviets along the top of our position. We'll go ahead and tell them to fire at will and no longer remain hidden so they can maximize that firepower. And it looks like we were able to take them out. See some more flares in the distance, indicating that the enemy will be approaching from this area. And our panzers are on the move. I'm telling them to take the road so they don't get caught up in those tree lines. Now you can see they have their lights on. Normally I wouldn't do that, but I'm fast moving them, which puts the lights on, just because I want them to get behind those trees as soon as possible. Alright, so it looks like we have some Soviet armor in this position right here. I told these troops to open up, maybe they can disable some of the tracks. And I'll go ahead and move these panzers to this position, and they may be able to get a side shot on them. These panzers I'm going to keep hidden behind these trees along the right side of the tree line. I believe that's just a transport truck. Yeah. Let's see what kind of armor we're dealing with. Alright. Valentines, I believe? Correct me if I'm wrong, I think those are Valentines. A British tank that were lend-leased to the Soviets, but correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not too sure on that one. Pretty sure, but not 100%. And again, you can see, even though I already issued this order, those tanks are taking their time to get there. Don't be tempted to micromanage and tell them to constantly do different things. Let them sort it out. You know, sometimes there's a bit of a delay, but the more orders you issue, the more problems you're going to find yourself into. So just allow yourself some time to let those tanks fill out the order and set up for attack. Just be sure, you know, you don't want to think, oh my god, these tanks are just sitting there not doing anything. What am I going to do? You just have to give them time to let it flesh out. We have more armor up here. These look like KVs. So that's going to give us a bit of a problem. I'd really like to neutralize these tanks over here on the left while we have the chance. And then we can go ahead and rush these KVs and pop up and hit them. We've got some more troops moving through here. I'm going to go ahead and open up on them. We'll hit them from both positions, get a little crossfire going on. We've got our armor still rolling. Taking some shots. Hopefully they can get these Valentines. Looks like they're firing at the KVs as well. Now that isn't ideal. We've got two flanks hitting us now, but there was no way to anticipate it. I think I'm going to go ahead and move them on up close. Go ahead and try to rush the KVs right now. It may be our only opportunity. We'll see if we can do anything with these KVs. It's going to be tough. Our best bet is to roll right over top of them. We have this panzer moving into a flanking position. He might be able to do some damage. And that may have been the kill shot. Yeah, I believe he's knocked out. We'll have these troops open up on that armored transport vehicle. They may be able to take it out. And we still have that KV in the tree line. I might go ahead and try to move some of these panzers down to this road to assist with that armor down here on that flank. And again, this position is not ideal. It's just what we have to deal with because those tanks were in transit. What do we have down here? Looks like more Valentines. I'd really like to see if we have some AT units in this area, but I don't believe we do. They're all on that far end of the flank. We'll just try to keep those troops hidden until the panzers can come and give them relief. Oh, and it looks like that KV's disengaging, which works in our favor. Now these tanks are a little bunched up, and again, that's not ideal either. Looks like our right flank is still okay. I think these may be panicked units. You can see them falling back. That was one of the issues we had at the beginning of this engagement. But as long as these troops remain hidden, I think we'll be okay for an ambush. Here's our AT weapons. If any of the tanks do decide to swing around and try to flank through this road, we'll be ready to open up on them. This is a field gun. Their anti-armor is, it's marginal, but it does have some. Let's check. They have a few AP rounds, 10.5 centimeters, but there's not high velocity on it. I don't want him to open up yet. I'll tell him to stay hidden. We'll wait until they get close. We still have some more tanks rolling down this road. Let's see where our panzers are. We'll go ahead and have these panzers follow in pursuit. We'll get them rolling. And this armor's just rolling through. Hopefully they'll go right into that field gun, and that field gun can do some damage with that 10.5 centimeter AP round. Taking shots. I really don't like the range they're engaging at. Keep in mind that Soviet optics on their armor, they are very poor. But again, these are Valentine tanks, these are British tanks, and I'm not certain how the optic situation is on those. Hi. It looks like we have in the distance maybe some of our soldiers surrendering where they were panicked. Over here on the flanks, looks like more Matildas. Let's have these panzers withdraw until support arrives. And then we'll go ahead and have these units make sure they're allowed to open up. We've got some infantry over here. We'll have this unit open up. Hopefully they'll take them out without any damage. You can just see those flares lighting the sky. And keep in mind I've upped the exposure in this engagement so you can see it better. It's actually a shade darker than what you're seeing. So visibility is even more limited than what you're seeing. We'll have this tank move up here along the road, try to rush them, while these panzers hold them off. Man, they are bunched up. I'll have them come up through here. And then tell them to attack through this position. I'll do the same with this guy right here. And that'll loosen us up a bit and allow a flanking maneuver as well. But man, once that engagement starts, it's really hard to direct your tanks, and you can see how screwed we are with getting bunched up. Maybe now we can get these tanks moving. Have these tanks come from the left. These guys come over here, flanking from the right. Get a little pincer action going on. Here's a Panzer IV with the F2 gun, the long barrel. If he can get up through these trees and hit those Matildas point blank, he can really do some damage. You can see our other two Panzers still moving up to close the engagement distance. And those Valentines are just taking a beating. Ooh. Maybe where they're underneath, they can get a few shots on the other side of the armor. Flip side being they can shoot us from the top armor. Nice. So now we have these Panzers moving around from the back. And here comes our Panzers up here. One of them with the upgraded F2 gun on it. The 7.5 long barrel. I'm not sure if these two Panzers see that Valentine yet. We're working with really limited visibility. I'll go ahead and tell these guys to not fire at infantry so they can focus on the armor. I'll set a priority target. You can use the T button if you want. We'll go ahead and select that Valentine. Give him a priority target, T. We'll scoot him up here, maybe he can move right in behind him. Nice. It's a T-60. T-28. Took him out. Just what we needed. We have lost a little more Panzers than I would have liked to in this engagement, but we've taken out several of their tanks. I really wish we were going up against more T-34s in this low light condition. Over here we've got a buttload of infantry just surrounded. We'll go ahead and see if we can get them to assault this armored unit and get it to knock off the tracks. I don't believe... Oh. Let's see. Yeah, they don't really have anything. any AT capabilities. We'll have this guy come down here. This guy as well. Stay behind this tree line. Swing around till they get in line with this tank. So we still have 4 of our tanks in operation. One of them being our big boy, the Panzer IV with the long barrel right here. You can see it designation F2. Maybe now we can help out our infantry, excuse me. Have these Panzers take out that Matilda, maybe get some flanking action going on, envelop them from the sides. We'll go ahead and tell them to get into their positions right here. And I do believe it's under an embankment, so they're under no threat. Yeah, we'll put them right here, and they can rise up above that crest and envelop them. Okay, so the way I want to plan this out, I want to put our Panzer IV right here because he has the good gun. We're going to bum rush him meanwhile with these 2 tanks head on, create a diversion. Maybe we can swing that F2 over, get some side shots. I wish I knew the effectiveness of that gun. I really don't know. I'm going to go ahead and let him fire at will. Even though he may be out of range and ineffective at that range, I'm going to go ahead and take a chance. I don't know it off the top of my head. There is a way to tell. There's that little checkerboard up there in the top of the toolbar. You can select that and then the shield icon that's checkerboarded. And it will actually tell you the penetration values, like if you're looking at the encyclopedia. I'll go ahead and tell him not to fire at infantry. But I consider that cheating. Ooh, nice. And again, this is a crapshoot. You can just see the top of one of our Panzers right here, and another right here. The turret's just popping out, just barely getting over the horizon of that hill. And I believe that's the F2 right there. Right in the turret. Actually, I don't believe that tank on the left is the F2. I think the F2 is further on the left, swinging around somewhere. Man, you could just imagine how difficult it would be to see in these low light conditions, especially in tangent with all that smoke. And that Panzer's abandoned. That's unfortunate. Don't know what he's backing up from. Oh, there's an AT gun firing right from there. We need to go ahead and get them out of here. Oh. He does not see that Valentine creeping up on him. Well played, AI. Well played. There it goes. He's a goner, man. I feel like the AI's really been improved in this operation. I mean, I've seen some flanking maneuvers. This right here specifically, I mean, that's nice. And they got out. It's abandoned. It's pretty impressive. We have 1 Valentine, 2 and 3. Looks like the tracks are disabled on this. Still taking shots. Okay, so looking at the after action report, it counts as a total defeat. I don't always pay attention to that, though. I do wish we were more successful. We did lose a lot of armor in that attack. They had a little more armor than I thought. They had all those Valentines that came out of nowhere from reserves because I hadn't seen them before. I wasn't aware of it. But as far as in service, we had 585 to their 488, 168 casualties to 158. The major point here is the armor. We did manage to destroy 13 of their tanks, and we did lose 6 of ours, so not quite how I would have liked it, but we still have that other Panzer platoon in reserve coming up, and we may be able to make something out of it. We'll just have to see. So after that initial engagement on the eastern flank, we're returning to pretty much the exact same engagement area as before, maybe shifted a little bit further westward. We do have our second tank battle group with us, however, and I believe we still have 6 out of 10 or however many tanks left in this other tank battle group that was just engaged. We'll go ahead and check it out here. And let's see. Looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tanks knocked out. But if you look where it has the category designations in the bottom left corner of this tooltip box, you'll see there's a 4 category, which means the vehicle is discommissioned and cannot be repaired, which is the case with a lot of our tanks. But if it's category 2, which is the case with that Panzer III OSJ, then it has minor damage and we can use it again, so there you go. Now, one lesson I did take from this is that with these infantry units, a lot of them do have AT weapons and field artillery with them, and our tanks are still fairly undergunned, so I would like to keep this close range. You can see that tree line right there. I'd like to keep our tanks behind that tree line, away from the enemy, and allow them to come attack us. We're going to let them come to us, we're not going to attack them, and hopefully we'll be able to position these armored units well, where we could not in the previous engagement, where they had just arrived and were placed dead middle at the center of the action without anything I could do about it. This time, hopefully, I'll have the option to position the armor effectively and where I want so we can get into a proper ambush position. Alright, so in this engagement, Graviteam, unfortunately for me, decided that all of my units were actually in transit when this engagement began, similarly to the previous one. So what you see is where they were placed randomly by Graviteam when the engagement began. You can see over here, here's my tank battle group that was involved in the previous engagement. I have them hotkeyed. As you can see, we have 5 fully mobile and functional tanks. We do have another tank here, but he is immobilized, so he's going to have to stay put here for the entire engagement. Now, what I do have them doing is, if you look at our tactical map, you'll see that this square right here cannot be taken. However, this square is an objective point and I want to hold it. I do want to concentrate my troops, however, so I'm going to have the units in this platoon sneak down here and then swivel over here, down here behind the tree line. Now, the way I was able to coordinate their position and give them multiple orders was by holding the shift key. I hold the shift key, right click, told them to sneak here, right click, told them to sneak here. It allows you to queue orders, which most of you are probably aware of that, but just in case you aren't, I want to go ahead and include that. Now, these units up here, this battle group up here, I move them to various positions to ambush, telling them to move without their lights on by using the Move Covertly modifier. And I'm telling them right now to hold their fire for now. If they see any units, I don't want them to fire on them until they're in close range and they can get a good ambush on them. Here is the battle groups of tanks, which is the command platoon. You can see them right here. And similarly, I have them moving behind this tree line like the first tank battle group. Now, the engineering group in this engagement is going to serve an important purpose. Not only would they be providing support, as you can see here, moving to various defensible positions, most of them back here, yeah. I think this group right here will be in this building. It's in a good defensible position to ambush and to spot. But most importantly is I have used the Alt button, so like let's say you click on this squad right here, you Alt and click, it just selects 2 men from that unit. So from that entire squad, there's only 2 guys selected. And those 2 guys function as a separate unit from that squad. So if I hit Control 1, it hotkeys them. I hit Control 1 to bring him up again, and his entire squad's going to move up here, but I can give him separate orders. I can right-click up here and tell him to recon up here, and he will move to this position, right up here, away from his squad. And what I've done for each squad, you can see I hotkeyed him, 1, 2, hotkeyed, he's going to move here, 3, hotkeyed, down here. Even though his squad is moving to this position, I have him moving up to this tree line, these 2 guys up to this tree line to scout. So that way I have scouts lined all along the perimeter of this tree line without wasting all of that manpower. I can hold them back here and keep them protected and in ambush position, and only 6 or 7 individual soldiers will be along this tree line in direct danger. So I'm going to go ahead and get this battle started, and as soon as we come into contact with the enemy, like always, I'll bring you back. So you can see our troops going back to their positions, falling back. Then we have our individual soldiers up here, moving to the edge of the tree line to scout for us. We have a bombardment going on. Oh. Hopefully our troops can weather it. And those are incendiary rounds. That is not good. Just lighting up the forest. And these soldiers are just desperately trying to seek any kind of shelter, any kind of respite they can as a man just runs through in flames. Hugging the earth. And that is just unfortunate for our plans. Got a small little congregation over here. I tell you what, that engineer platoon just got decimated from that artillery assault. Very few survivors. The Red Army placed that perfectly. Spot on. We do have 1 tank over here. Looks like a KV. That's going to be a tough one. We'll tell these guys to remain hidden. I do not want them to fire at will. Really want to close that engagement range. You can hear the first rounds popping off. Go ahead and have this guy reverse. I don't want him to fire either, excuse me. Have him turn his position. Man, that bombardment is still going on. I'll have these guys take defense right here. I'm not sure why they're arranged in a line like that. I tell you what, I don't know if I have ever seen a platoon completely decimated like that. Absolutely wicked. Reduced to nothing. Completely destroyed by that Soviet artillery. Still going on. Let's see if we can hunt this KV. Took a shot. And now the engagement begins. Return some fire. I'm not sure if that KV's isolated. Let's see if we can get this Panzer moved up. Be able to flank and envelop him. If he is alone. Oh. I would like to know where our command Panzer is. The F2. Let's try to get close here. Close enough to do some damage anyway. Let's have them all fire at will now. We may be able to get some side shots on this KV. You can see these two Panzers moving up right now. It's like a Panzer III. And he should be effective at this range. You can see that KV taking some rounds in the distance. And there we go, that KV is ditched. We needed that. Go ahead and open up on infantry. We have another tank in the distance, too. Looks like a T-34. I didn't catch the other one. I think our best bet is just go ahead and rush up, use our local numerical superiority, try to get that flank in, and we'll see what we can do. Oh, you can see now there are several tanks. KVs, T-34s. Looks like one of those T-34s has been abandoned. We may be able to knock some of these tanks out, but the longer this engagement goes on, the less hopeful our outlook looks. Man, Panzer's just taking rounds. They have way more tanks than I thought they did. Just getting lit up. And it looks like they're incapacitated. So this is not optimal at all. You can see some tanks here from the previous engagement. Whew, that is a lot of tanks. Heavies too. Let's go ahead and see if we can have some of these tanks retreat. I don't want them engaged right now. There are just too many Soviet tanks. Undergunned and outnumbered. Now look at this infantry moving forward. Just completely rushing these two Panzers. We'll go ahead and have them open up. They're just swelling from that tree line. So this engagement is not looking good. You can see as we zoom out and get a strategic look at the situation, this platoon of Soviet infantry just rushing down to take the town. We have no engineers left to defend it. That Panzer's going to desperately try to keep them away from the town. We'll go ahead and cancel the orders on this tank. It's a short barrel. We'll go ahead and have him fire at that infantry as well. He may be able to take some of them out. If he can get a visual. You can see off in the distance, just see him advancing. And the armored battle continues over here on the right side of the town. So it looks like we have our 3 panzers right here lined out, forming some line of last defense. And right over here you can just barely see through the top of the grass the turret of the Soviet tank cresting that hill. Make sure that they are set to engage infantry as well, which they are. And I'm not sure who we can see through this tree line, if anyone. You can see that KV right there, poking out. However, I'm not certain if he has a visual on him. He's searching for targets. Don't think he sees them. Oh, there we go. He got a visual on somebody. Over here, with the platoon of Soviets rushed through, you can see the Panzer managed to kill a lot of their troops. A lot. At least 50% casualties on that platoon, if I had to guess. You can see that lone Panzer right here. Just took out a lot of that platoon from those advancing Soviets. The town in flames. Red soldiers littered before it. Still just shooting in the darkness. On the other side of the town, though, we are in trouble. I mean, our tank platoons, just like that, in one turn, completely decimated. And that is a menacing sight. KV-1, T-34s, another KV-1. They just look on. Scattered Wehrmacht troops running for their lives. Shrouds of smoke. Oh, doesn't stand a chance. To the right, the town clearly lit up from the flames. I'm going to try to regroup our panzers. Maybe they can somehow get out of this engagement, out of this situation, live to fight another day. And again, just zooming out to look at this in a strategic sense, annihilated. Man, this is a tough campaign. Tough. This might be the toughest campaign I have ever played. Alright, so here comes our panzers, our only survivors, just running for their lives. Trying to give themselves some separation from the enemy. Hopefully they can use the Shroud of Darkness to escape. At least we have one with the upgraded gun. That was the F2, I believe. This one looks like one of the short barrels. Continuing to roll down. Alright, we have to withdraw. Get out of here. Panzers grouped together outside of the combat. We went ahead and ordered the troops to withdraw, and hopefully these panzers will safely make it out. We'll be able to repair the ones that need to be repaired, and fight another day with what we have left. Alright, so looking at the after-action report, we had forces of 463 weighted compared to their 1,089. And I'll be honest, in my opinion, it just seems like luck is not on our side in this operation. It seems like every time we place AT in defensive positions, the tanks always approach from the opposite side of the map, never walk into our ambushes. Their artillery bombardments are placed perfectly. Our Luftwaffe support is not arriving when and where it needs to be. It seems like any time that we place 88s earlier in the engagement, they're only managing to get like a 1-to-1 kill ratio. We are really, really having a tough time defending the outskirts of Borky, and I don't know how successful we're going to be. We're going to continue to slowly fall back probably, to see if we can mainly hold the town of Borki. Let's see how we face some adversity. So on to turn 9, 5 in the morning, sunrise. We'll go ahead and shore up our troops, maintain our positions. You know, it's interesting. I've noticed there's not a debriefing over here. You can see over here on the left side of the screen, it's etched out, where there was one earlier. You know, the Second Battle of Kharkov, it was huge, and this is just a small snapshot of the entirety of the battle. It's the last of the Soviet offensives before the Wehrmacht counterattack. If you look what's interesting, you know, even in huge battles like this, especially with the Soviet armies, you know, there were entire Red armies where there basically was no documentation on them, hardly any record at all. And if you're not a student of history, it's easy to overlook that, and it's easy to forget that a lot of that history has already been lost less than 100 years later. You know, you look right here at this debriefing, the last debriefing we had, it was turn 6 at 8 o'clock. And it's interesting because it's talking about the 201st Tank Regiment, those 2 tank battle groups that we received, the Panzers. So they were advancing, and it says they managed to fight into Raya Bakino. I'm not going to pretend I know how to pronounce that, but which it's right here. And it said they were able to get in there and support the village. But then it says in one of the schemes, it indicates the 201st advanced west. So, you know, according to some reports, they were west of this. And it's just like, how many armies, how many battalions, how many battles just happened that we really have no documentation on? Do we really know what happened at this location? You know, I just think the details like that are interesting. And by the way, if anyone has any nice books on the Second Battle of Kharkov, let me know, because I haven't been able to read any yet. Okay, so before we get started, I want to go ahead and go over my strategy really quickly with you. We're going to basically try and do that same masked wall approach that we did try earlier in the previous engagement where they fucked us by ended up swinging around on our flank. So this way I'm going to try to prevent that. More than likely, I'm hoping the armor will roll down through these roads right here. And even if they come, like let's say they don't use the roads, they come down this field, they will still have the cover. My anti-tank units here will still have the cover of these trees, so they won't be exposed. The only way they wouldn't be exposed is if they decided to swing around here on the flanks, which that is a very real possibility. It did happen to us earlier, but I do have troops over here acting as spotters. And we have all this open ground. We have these support weapons, the lovely Wehrmacht support weapons, machine guns, MG-34s covering this ground, as well as this flank over here. And I'm just really hoping, and here's our support gunners right here, I'm just really hopeful that the tanks will funnel down through here. Now, we do have an initial defense layer right here with this small little door knocker, the 3.7. I'm going to keep calling them door knockers, by the way. 3.7 pack. And he can't stop it, or if he can't stop any of the tanks and they continue to roll down through here, we'll be able to stop him with the guns back here. I do have 2 machine gunners in front of the tree line. That is in case of infantry attack, but if it's just armor rolling through, I'm going to run these machine guns behind the tree line as well, hopefully bait the armor through, and light them up with our 5cm and our other 3.7cm door knocker in support. Same over here, I'll pull these troops back if I have to. Now I have my spotter hotkeyed, and something just to bring up, I haven't brought it up in any of the previous engagements, so I'm going to go ahead and pass this knowledge along to you in case you are unaware. You can tell if you're going to have scheduled support only, or if you're going to be able to actually schedule support during the engagement by the fact that you have the ability to zero in. So if you have the option to zero in, it means that you're going to be able to schedule your artillery support after the engagement has began. So, like in this case, what I did is I did an initial bombing run right here along this road because I just figured that it's a primary spot, a likely spot for armor to roll down, for infantry to roll down. But then I added other fire tasks here, here, and here, as you can see right here. And basically what I told them to do was zero in on those artillery lanes, And the reason I do that is because if you do tell it to zero in, the artillery is only going to fire a couple of rounds at that target before you get started, and basically the coordinates, that position is going to be saved, and it's going to be preemptively zeroed in, and you can hit that target again if you choose to. So after the engagement begins, after they do zero in on that artillery lane, you'll see like a little yellow triangle that shows that that location has been zeroed in on, so you have it for a quick reference. And if you want to put another firing lane down on top of that again, you can do that without having to wait 7 or 8 minutes, before the initial bombardment begins, and wait, another 2 or 3 minutes for it to zero it in. It'll be really quick. So we'll just go ahead and get this engagement started, and as soon as something happens, I'll be back. Green flares. That is really funny. The one area I did not want them to come from. Of course, that's where they're going to be concentrated, just like in the previous engagement. We cannot catch a break. We can still deal with them, though. We'll be able to swivel. We have time in this scenario to actually swivel our T guns in this direction. We can place them in the tree line here and hide them some. So we do have that option. Man, that is just unfortunate that this is happening in every single engagement, though. I'm going to go ahead and move these AT guns into the tree line right here. You can see in this direction. Now, before I do move these AT guns into the tree line, I want to make sure that it is a committed armor assault coming down through this field, and I'm just going to wait till we get visual contact with these units right here. I'm going to actually tell this machine gunner right here to quit hiding, and that way he has a good field of view. Turn him to face this way. You hear that artillery going off? That's our 10.5 centimeters LEFHs. Or no, that's actually the Russian artillery. Our artillery is right here. And down here is just our command units and supply units, so we do want to keep those units safe. We have somebody opening up. Right down here. That's excellent. Got machine gunners covering it. Ooh, he bit it though. Wasn't expecting that. One thing I wish they would give the option of in Graviteam is to extend the vegetation. There was an old game they made, I think it was called Still, oh man, I can't think of what it was called. It was, you actually played in one of their tanks, and it was before Operation Star and everything. And you could go into the, nice shots, you could go into the settings And if you went into the Notepad, and tried to edit it, you could edit the vegetation to have a draw distance as long as you wanted. Unfortunately, you look here, like see, we look out here, we see this guy machine gunning. If we zoom in, you can see the vegetation's just gone. So like normally these troops, obviously it's just a visual aid, but normally these troops would all be hiding in the vegetation. It'd be really hard for this machine gunner to see, but you don't get that visual representation. It looks like AstroTurf almost. And I really wish Graviteam would give the option, at least have the option, to extend this vegetation out as far as we wanted, if you had a computer that could handle it. I don't really know why they don't allow that. I wish they would. I asked about it in the forums before, and it just seems like they're not interested in it, so. But it would be a really nice touch to have. Got him. Love these 34s. This guy's opening it up now too. Long distance. Man, they can cover 1,000 meters. Let's see how long it is actually. Yep, about 800. Just getting pelted with that machine gun fire from every direction. Lovely. Still waiting for the armor. I know they have armor. That's just deadly. What I'm saying, if you have a couple machine guns, put a couple 34s out there. I mean, you can keep a whole... I mean, with this many machine guns, you can keep several platoons at bay. Alright, now here's a large force over here. Let's see what we got working. Oh man, an artillery bombardment. Not good. Looks like they've got smoke grenades they're gonna throw. Try to conceal their movement. So you see there's some field guns. Soviet field guns out in the distance. Looks like our machine gunners are doing well, though. Okay, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, rather than fire at this lane right here, I'm going to make a firing lane on this field artillery, because I know that's going to be stationary for most of the match. Now we can just drop it directly on them. So we'll go ahead and do high explosives. We'll do 50 per gun, and we'll let them have it. There we go. I do want to make sure that we get these areas, though, zeroed in, because then after I'll show you how it does the check mark, and that means you're zeroed in. You can lay it on top of that later if you want to. Still got those MGs just opening up on everybody. Glad we have that support. Excellent support. See him coming across the field now. Let's see. I want to see where every single one of our MGs are. We got one here. This is the commander. One here. This is the one that got taken out. And our second group of MGs. One here. And where is he? One here. So I think we're looking pretty good. Just continue to fire at these troops off in the distance. Oh, just missed them. I love the physics in Graviteam. You see the arch of the bullets. You see how they do just a spray pattern and use the tracers. I mean, it's just very realistic. You don't see that in any other games. Barely missed him. Picked up this guy, though. Got mortars going. I don't know if he can see them. Let's see. Yeah, that's who I want him to go after. Excellent. That's what we needed. Took out the mortar guy right there. I was going to have him target it, but did it on his own. You can see that field artillery is still going off, way off in the distance. See it over here, over here. I'd like to take care of that as soon as possible. Got one area zeroed in. Okay, there, right there. See that? that means that area has been zeroed in. So let me give you an example. I'll come over here, and I will get the artillery lane flag. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and make them fire here, but just to show you, let's say there was troops that walked up here later. I could lay down a lane right here, and you can see it would only take 1:30 and it would be accurate within 240 meters, whereas normally it would take like 7 minutes and be accurate within, 1,200 meters. So, just to give you an example of how that works. Right here again, I wanted to lay it right here. Look how accurate that would be. So, if I wanted to lay it, let's say, like this, still more accurate than it would have been. Whoops. 120. So basically you just lay it right over top. 150. Let's see. That just shows you. Give you an idea. But I really want to get rid of this artillery first. I think these troops are probably going to peter out on their attack. They probably weren't expecting all of these assault weapons. It's unfortunate about these guys. Just getting lit up by that already. I want to get rid of it. I think I'm going to go ahead and add that as a fire task, actually, right there. And we'll, who's preparing to do that? I don't have that much time. We'll add that fire task first, this one right here, and then we'll move and do the field artillery next. So I just want to catch these troops while I can. Hopefully these machine guns can work to suppress the advance, at least for a little while. And then we'll just have these troops pinned down. There's some armor. Now if that armor does eventually advance, that's okay. Down that road is exactly what we want. That AT gun here, and then the AT guns here behind this wall of trees. Wish we had some field guns, that'd be nice. Oh. Take a shot. There we go, that's what we needed. Stop this attack in its tracks. Nice, nice. So that's why you zero in your artillery, folks. If I was a Soviet, that is a lot of open ground to cover. Be a tough attack, man. Oof, brutal. Brutal, brutal, brutal. Ooh. It's interesting, you can't really tell here because there's no contrails, but you can see the shells. Like, you can see that drop in right there. I don't know if you can see it. I could see it on my screen. I don't know if you're recording, you can pick it up or not, but just awesome details with Gravy. Yeah, this topography just lends itself to hurdling rounds, thousands of meters, doesn't it? Let's see. I think I like that one better. We can get rid of that one. Let's add that on there. It's a large force over here, but really I think that these troops here will be able to take care of them as they try to traverse that long open field. We got troops here. I mean, the priority right now is to get rid of this field artillery because it's just coming in, and it's enfilade fire too. It's not head on. It's coming in from the side and going down the ranks. So that's just devastating. I want to take care of that artillery as soon as possible. Tell you what, we could do with some air support. Look at it from the Soviets' position. Like I said, that's just a long ground to cover. Here they come. Oof, lucky man right there. Got him. You can see how devastating those machine guns would be over this distance. And that was something interesting too, when they had Normandy on D-Day. You know, a lot of people have the images of Saving Private Ryan, which, great movie, you know, especially for its time. But, you know, you look at that movie and just on the beach, they had to storm like, what was it, like 50 yards it seemed like. You know, in real life, it was a distance about like this they had to cover. And something I've always been interested in was the smoke. You know, you'd think there'd be a lot of smoke that they would use to cover the advance. And I haven't read too much about that, so if anyone knows if they did use smoke on the advance, let me know. That just seems like the obvious thing to do, but every depiction I've ever seen of it, even the images of them storming the beach, I never see any smoke, so... Okay, so now the Soviets have made it down here. And I believe the MG-34s are firing above their position, getting the troops in the back. You can see them still advancing along a wide front. They still have a sizable force, even if we manage to reduce them with that artillery and with those machine guns. So a big mistake I've made is I had several field guns earlier in this engagement, and I was not aware of this position and how great it is for field artillery. So if I do get the opportunity to put field artillery in here, you bet I'm going to do it. If we hold this position, next turn there is field artillery going right here with any reserve units we have, because this is just perfect. I mean, it's a sin not to use field artillery out here. Oh boy, there's some planes. Where are they? Where are they? Nice. That's what we needed. That's what we needed. Wish there's a little more of an armor presence, but that'll do. Stuka dive bombers. I'd like them to take out that field artillery. If you want to know the truth. See where they're going. Alright, we got one target here. Looks like he might hit it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Perfect. Now raining down with those rear guns. Knocked off the track. Oh, now you just see the sheer amount of Soviet troops. Look at that. Oh my god. Look, we have troops here. You got troops over here. Where were the rest? Look at all that over there. Jesus. You know, I know it's kind of trendy now to say that close air support in the war was overrated. You know, they said the U.S. Air Corps ran studies and found the ground pounders almost succeeded in knocking out armor like 5% of the time or something. But I feel like there's got to be some kind of disconnect there. You know, Stuka bombers, they could literally drop on targets on a dime. They rarely missed, and I know they quit using them later in the war. They just didn't have the performance needed to survive, but I just can't imagine air support suddenly dropping to virtual ineffectiveness after that. You know, I think it played a huge role, and it's just kind of a trend to downplay it nowadays. I mean, it was Stalin himself that said to one of his factory managers that to the Red Army, the IL-2 was like the air it breathed and the bread it ate, so I ain't buying it. Now, from the reading I've done on World War II on those Stukas, that siren you hear, That wailing siren was designed specifically to intimidate. And you have to think, I mean, this was in the 40s. These type of weapons of war, just any type of heavy machinery, especially to the Soviets, you know, a lot of them came from really rural areas. A lot of them didn't have education in certain areas. They had never seen anything like that in their entire lives. A flying beast, something going through the air. And you really have to think about that and the fear that would elicit, something just raining down death. I know when they were training troops for Stalingrad, actually, when they were training Soviet troops for Stalingrad, they were terrified of tanks. And they had to, I think I got this from Beaver's book, Stalingrad, Anthony Beaver's book on Stalingrad. And they had to train soldiers to not be afraid of tanks. So they took their own tanks, their own T-34s, and actually ran them over top of trenches and made soldiers sit in them to get over this tank phobia that they had. So you have to understand what these crazy just weapons of war that they had at the time that were completely novel and completely new, how scary that had to be and how it was such an effective psychological warfare weapon. And the enemy is now offered a truce, so I'm going to take it because I saw how many troops they had. I do not want to deal with that. Okay, so as we move to 11 a.m., you can see that we've managed to shore up our line right here. So at least we aren't completely broken into 3 separate parts. I am going to try to pull back a little bit right here, try to get these lines joined up. I may not be able to, but I am going to go ahead and give it a shot. I would like to hold this objective point at least. It looks like the Red Army is pushing up through here, and they're forming a pretty strong salient. I don't think we're going to be able to, obviously by now, surround them. So let's go down here and look at the debriefing. It says at 11, there are fights on the eastern outskirts of Borky, right here. The Germans managed to knock out 6 Soviet tanks and repel the attack of numerous infantry that accompanied them. On the German side, 4 tanks participated in repelling the attack. So it's apparent that there were still 4 tanks left by the time the Soviet troops got to Borky. As far as the schedule goes, how our gameplay is going historically relative to the time frame, it seems like it's pretty accurate. The Soviet troops are knocking on the doorstep of Borky at 11 a.m., just like they were according to the debriefing. However, there were still 4 tanks left. We are down to 0, big fat nothing. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that there are certain, I guess you could call them soft factors, soft concepts, that aren't really able to be represented in a sim like this. Even Graviteam. You know, we've been talking about how the Soviets just have this overwhelming numerical superiority, with tanks that are not only supposedly better armored, but better gunned as well. So you have this huge numerical advantage. It's got to be, I'm talking 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 to 1 to what we've been able to put up. And not only that, they're supposed to be these better tanks. So The question is, historically, how in the hell did the Wehrmacht stop these superior Russian tanks that were just so unstoppable? You know, the Germans can only put up AT weapons that were just considered door knockers. So what gives? Well, I think a lot of those soft factors are things that can't be represented in this game. For starters, you have the purges, which I believe started in 1937 under Stalin, where he just liquidated all of his top leadership in the military. And what that created was a lot of passive soldiers and officers, especially junior officers. So they came up with this mindset thinking they weren't to question orders. So rather than taking the initiative and going out and doing what needed to be done, because they knew better than anyone else, I mean, they were smack dab in the middle of the situation, they took the route of inaction and were passive. And on the battlefield, quick action and initiative are king. If they had an opportunity present itself, no matter how obvious, they would literally do nothing until they received orders from higher up the chain. Also, Soviet tank crews weren't as experienced at the time. This is still 42, early 42, and this is one of the first major offensives with the Soviets, and offensive always require way more coordination than a defense. Training during this time frame was a huge factor. I know that we're talking primarily about ground operations here, but to give you an example of the overall training of the Soviet military at this time, you don't really need to look any further than the VVS. Before the war, Luftwaffe pilots received about, I think it was 200 hours of flight time and training compared to the Soviet 150, so it was comparable. But after Barbarossa kicked off and Soviet air was all but destroyed, the VVS became so pressed for manpower that the training hours dropped dramatically. Oftentimes, you literally had these pilots being taught to take off, land, and operate the plane's weapons systems, and then they were sent straight out. And that kind of gives you a rough idea of the training disparities between the opposing forces in 42. And on top of that, you have to consider the attrition rates. The T-34 was very cramped, and penetration by AT resulted in a net loss of 82% of the crew, compared to something like 42% for a tank like the Sherman. So think about that. That works against the Red Army's ability to gain experience. Every time the tank got shot, you lost the entire crew and had to start over. You couple that with the fact that these were entirely new armies with poor communication and a lack of initiative, and it's a formula for getting wrecked. Another issue is that the tanks themselves had issues with things you definitely can't replicate in the game. The materials and the weld quality in the early production of the KVs and the T-34s were bad. I mean, there's just no other way around it. The welding process was sometimes so atrocious that water would constantly leak into the tanks and even damage the electrical equipment. And the armor was very brittle, so it often spalled, and it would disable the crew even with a lack of penetration, and tanks did break down all the time. Now, of course, this changed later in the war. We all know the T-34 is one of the most reliable tanks in existence. But during this time, not the case. You'd also hear about how Wehrmacht panzers could get out 3 or 4 rounds before Soviet tankers could even sight them. And the reason for that, aside from the poor optics and buttoned visibility, is command and control. For instance, all Wehrmacht tanks had radios on them at this time, while their Soviet counterparts were equipped with very little. Sometimes it was just the platoon commanders. And if we go back to our trusty book, Tank Warfare on the Eastern Front, Forchek describes some of those soft factors, and it's interesting. Soviet tank commanders usually lacked binoculars and were taught to operate buttoned up in combat, which drastically reduced their situational awareness versus German tankers. Since the Soviet Union had not developed an armored personnel carrier analogous to the German Sd.Kfz, a serious deficiency, Soviet tanks did not operate as closely with their attached motorized infantry as German panzer groups did. During the purges, the NKVD had created the threat of internal wreckers, or counter-revolutionary saboteurs, so the RKK General Staff, not wanting to appear in collusion with anti-regime forces, issued a directive that forbade tank crews from conducting routine maintenance without proper supervision. Concerned that soldiers might willfully contaminate the oil or fuel in their tank engines, political officers simply forbade most routine maintenance at unit level and directed that any work be conducted by supervised technicians at Army-level depots. So you couldn't even repair your tanks, you had to leave them behind the lines. Now think of how many tanks we've damaged and the implications of that in this operation. He goes on at page 37. Unlike the Germans, only tanks operated by company or battalion level commanders were equipped with radios, although some platoon leaders were just getting them in June 1941. Lacking effective communications, Soviet armored units were forced to rely upon flags, messengers, and dangerous follow-the-leader formations. So think about that. Think about this battlefield, okay? Look at this map. And on this map, each one of these squares is 1 kilometer. Now imagine having to be buttoned up inside of your tank, using flags to communicate rather than radios, and you have different tank battle groups kilometers away from one another, all trying to coordinate their movements. Now imagine how difficult that would be. Imagine how disorganized and piecemeal your movements could quickly become. And I think you start to get a good idea of why the Wehrmacht was so effective, even in local engagements, against supposedly superior armor at this point in the war. Yes, radio communication, or lack thereof, is supposed to be replicated in Graviteam, but it isn't really implemented at a strategic AI level or even in tactical coordination. So, saying that, I'm going to go ahead, and I just thought that was an interesting tidbit, but back to business. I'm going to go ahead and try to shore up our units again. It's not looking good for us. If you go right here, you can see that we're suffering, as of right now, a minor defeat. I don't see anything turning around, honestly. We're not going to be able to mount an effective counteroffensive at this point, so we're just trying to keep our units from falling apart, and I just want to try to match what happened historically with the Wehrmacht. I'm just going to try to hold Borky. You can see the enemy's gaining about 13 more points than us a turn, so this disparity is only going to grow. That's one thing about this operation. I will tell you, this is the most difficult operation I've ever played for a Graviteam game, and we're just going to try our best to hold the town of Borky, and we'll consider that a victory if we can go ahead and hold it out. So we'll go ahead and see what we can do. The decisive point is approaching in the game. Can we hold Borky? This is where we are going to dig in. We are going to hold to the last. Now, as you can see, we're not in the circle here. We have a holdout. Stretches right around here, around the flank. And this is a major objective point. I do not want to give up any more objective points. I want to be taking objective points from the enemy at this point. So we are going to position all of our troops inside of this square, because this one cannot be taken and our lines will remain intact. And we're going to hold to the last. Okay, so starting this engagement, this is the square that we have to hold. It is worth objective points. These engineers were actually in transit, so I couldn't position them. I'm having them run the take defense somewhere down here in the town. Got a perimeter set up as best as I can with these infantry units right here. I don't expect the enemy to attack on this left flank, which it looks like we predicted correctly as the flares are coming from this direction, but I do have him as a spotter. Our AT capabilities are extremely weak. We have this one 3.7 centimeter gun I have hidden here. So it's all going to be up to our infantry, and we just have to hope they don't push through with a lot of armor. Now we do have a couple of those little field guns. The let's see if I can find them. Where are they? Yeah, right here. Oops, wait. Let's use the Q button. You can see they have a good field of fire, and they have pretty good protection. They're kind of far back, and I'm telling them right now not to fire at will, just because I don't want them to expose themselves unless they absolutely have to, and then they can begin firing. The other one is right here. I really like these guns. They're really good, especially if they have a good clear field of fire. They can just lob those HE rounds and really do some damage. Those rounds are actually ours. Got our artillery spotter right here. Here is the areas we're going to zero in on. Unfortunately, that is not our artillery. Hopefully it's not going to do too much damage, though. I was kind of afraid of placing troops in these towns. One thing you'll notice about the AI is that the AI loves to place artillery bombardments in towns, so if you can avoid placing units in towns unless you absolutely have to, or just at least keep it in mind, because it's often a prime target for artillery if the enemy's going to use it. Ugh, that round is close. Here's our zero-in spots, however, so if we do need to do a quick artillery bombardment, we can do it. So it looks like they were just zeroing in. If they do want to run an attack with the artillery, unfortunately. So I'm going to see if I can move this gun here. The reason being, I saw some armor up in the distance. I really want to get this placed quickly and just be set up optimally. It's all we have. I know there's a risk of them being spotted moving, but I want to go ahead and do it sooner rather than later, because I don't want this tank to roll through and just destroy absolutely everything, and even our troops on this side of the town. You can see them rolling down now. Looks like a Matilda It's a Matilda or a Valentine. More of that already going off. Fortunately, it's just barely missing our troops. Engineering squad. Go ahead and have them just, for now, take defense in this ravine. I'm going to hold down the shift button after that and tell them to hide. Him take defense here. Tell him to hide. Okay, so we're zeroing in right now on this location. I'm not going to waste an artillery strike on it. We'll get a little closer to this tank and see exactly what it is, even if that's cheating a little. Okay, so it's a Valentine. It's a light tank. Here's a troop transport. Just going to see if any of these troops have anti-tank capabilities. Obviously they don't, but I want to see if they at least have grenades. Looks like they do. You can see down at the bottom the HE 6x M24. Those bundle grenades. Looks like they're rolling down this way. Where is our anti-tank gun? Right there. Okay, that's excellent. Ooh, there's some artillery going off. Go ahead and pause it. I want to get him positioned just perfectly. Going to place him. Let's see. Actually place him right here, and that way the tanks won't see him until they swing around. So we'll put him right here. Covert, move them there. Oh, they've been spotted. We'll have them fall back to this position. Trying to take out that APC, it's going to be tough. See if we can get him to fall back. I'm going to go ahead and lay down some fire, I think. Cancel this fire mission. We'll lay it down. We'll do 30 per gun. Lay it. And obviously it's not going to hit that armor. It will arrive too late for that, but maybe some of this infantry coming up it can hit and suppress. We've got our infantry gun, or our AT gun right here. Got a pretty good field of fire I have him set for. He might be able to take out this armored unit. Anything's happening over on our right flank. We do have some infantry. And it looks like our mortars are taking care of it. Go ahead and have them open up. Oops. Now I think what I'm going to do is, because it looks like... Well, I'll keep these troops here for now. Ooh. Wide front. That's going to be perfect if they just go ahead and get started. We really need that artillery to hit for us. Go ahead and have these guys open up. Maybe that'll halt that infantry for a second and allow our artillery to get going. It looks like that might have been the first round, or that might have been mortars. Really want that artillery to get fire, and they're right over top of it, but it needs to get concentrated. There's some rounds starting. It might get those troops down on the ground and suppress them and get them stuck. You gotta remember, when you have those shells going off all around you, you're gonna want to hit the dirt, so these troops might stop moving. I don't want to move this AT gun, as tempting as it is, because it will expose them. I'm gonna wait for him to swing around here. Some more of those guns going off. And you can see they're down on the ground. So we got really lucky with that artillery placement. Zero in, folks. Always zero in. It's like up here our mortars held any advancing units on this flank. Ooh, more arty right in the heart of them. Exactly what we needed. If we can soften up this attacking target right here, that would really help in defense of the town. Unfortunately, the tanks are coming down this way, which is not what we wanted. See, the artillery's still going. I'd like it to hit down on this side. There we go, there's some shots. So you can see the effects that artillery's had on those advancing Soviet lines. Big problem though is going to be this Matilda. Where'd it go? Or Valentine, excuse me. I'm going to go ahead, take our engineers here, and I'm going to have them see, I'm hesitant to put them in this town because I know they have that artillery there, but looks like we have troops coming down through here. I don't want to expose them. I think for now I'm just going to leave them hidden, tell them not to fire at will, keep them in a kind of reserve. Man, I'm really tempted to move this AT up. Nothing's happening yet, so don't want to jump the gun, we'll just wait. It's unfortunate for these guys, though, that are in its path. It's just one tank, though. If anything, we'll run out of ammo eventually. Got another one moving up here to the southeast. Looks like another... It's hard to tell at these distances. Say another Valentine. We have these troops over here. I think our command radius is up. I'm going to tell them to fire at will. And I think they're safe from the tanks approaching from this direction. My biggest worry are these three Matildas, or these three Valentines. But right now they are not moving. I'm tempted to move this guy back a little bit into these trees. Maybe give him a little more cover. I think that's what I'm going to do. Let's move him back here. And hopefully these tanks will come down this road on this side. Now, if the tanks decide to come down through here and really push it, I'm going to take these troops and move them to this side of the town. See over here? Good fields of fire, good cover. And we have those mortars opening up on them. Ooh. It's those guns coming in handy. Perfect. See him right here. Tell him to go ahead and fire at will, even though he's already doing it. Way to take initiative, buddy. Way to take initiative. Those field guns just really coming in handy. Excellent. Just looking for our other one. Right here. Go ahead and tell him to open up as well. Not sure if he can see them, though, from his position. Looks like he can, actually. Let's see if he loads them. Yep, there they go. Nice. Right on top of him. Beautiful. So I think we're covered on this end. Tank's still not advancing. We halted the enemy troops with the artillery bombardment. Everything's gone about as well as we could have hoped for. These tanks coming down here, they are on the side I'd like them to be on, because our lone AT gun right here, but it's just going to be really tough to do anything with it being that 3.7 centimeter. These troops are still just getting lit up over here. Let's look at the carnage they've caused. Look at that. And that's all from those field guns. Just lighting up that tree line. And that attack is just going to be stopped dead in its tracks. So the question is now, do we try another artillery bombardment? If I reposition it a little bit, it's going to take 3 minutes to get there. And it's only going to start with an accuracy of 420, but it will zero in shortly. I'm going to go ahead and run it. We can always cancel it if we need to. Let's do it. And you can just see the last known positions of all those Valentines. It's our lone 3.7 centimeter gun, sits in waiting. Oh, now we have more coming down the road. Ooh, that's a big column, too. What is it? KVs. Oh, no. We did not want this, or need this. What I'm going to do is try to be preemptive here. I'm going to take our units that are on this side of the town, move them back here. Try to get them out of the line of fire from these tanks that are coming up. I'm gonna leave these guys here as spotters. Question is what we do with this engineering platoon. I'm gonna keep them here, I think. Really would have liked that artillery strike to get placed a little sooner. Maybe stop some of those tanks dead in their tracks. Got a KV. Oh, KVs. Oh, man. That is going to be tough to deal with. I was feeling confident about this this battle until right now. Man. Here they come. There's that artillery firing at them. Are those our field guns shooting? I'm not sure what's shooting at them. There's the field guns. Yeah, I think it is. Yep. They changed their facing. Oh man, those KVs are really rolling. They're not fucking around, are they? We really need to get these guys down here. They're trying to move covertly so as not to be spotted. Oh man. Not good. It looks like they are going to come straight down through here. Let's get this engineering squad back down here. I just don't want them to cross that field. Yeah, let's go ahead and move them on this side of the town. Take off, they remain hidden so they run. And they're just going to run, make a jet for it, go for it, to that side of the town. Because if these tanks push through here, they're exposed. They might act as bait, too. Maybe these tanks will follow them over here. That AT gun. Oh. And there's that artillery. Man, see, the AI in Graviteam is pretty good. You remember they zeroed in on this area earlier? Have them fall back down this way instead. Because I think where they zeroed in earlier, I think they're just calling that artillery right down on that position because they spotted our engineers. So what we can do is have them swing around this way, then come in down here. There's nothing much these troops can do. They're just going to have to weather the storm. So the question is now, do we make these troops fall back? Kind of have an Alamo situation going on where they try to hold the town. Here they come. See what happens. Oh, man. It's not what you want to see with that little door knocker. Oh, we already took a shot. They're going to have to do something. Oh. Gone. They didn't even try to take the shot. So what we're going to have to do for the remainder of the match is just try to keep our infantry away from those tanks and see if we can retain possession of this square. I do not want to give it up. See these tanks rolling out here, approaching this infantry. They have a few bundled grenades. Alright, let's have them open up. Oh. There's absolutely nothing they can do. Now that Soviet armor's really rolling, we're paying for the mistakes with losing those 88s. So do we withdraw these troops and try to save them? Or do we desperately try to hold this town? How much time do we have left? 32 minutes, that's a long time. I think we're going to go ahead and withdraw. There's nothing we can do, and these tanks will roll up on this position. Alright, so this is where we're going to make our stand. This is the town of Borky, and it is our last line of defense. What I've done is I have decided to consolidate all of my troops and create a perimeter around the outskirts of the town. Now, if you look at our objectives from the map, you can see that this is the only square that holds any value as far as the strategic map goes that will give us strategic objective points. Fortunately, it cannot be taken by the Soviets on this turn. The only square they can take is this one up here, which is actually to the south, and I did not place any troops on it because I'm not interested in defending it if there is no objective point value to it. And if you look from this position, you can see it's not good topography. There is a lot of open field, which would be good for our AT. Keep in mind we have that 88, but everything is uphill, so our field of view would be highly limited. So instead I opted to keep everyone consolidated within the town, and you can see on this perimeter right here on our left flank that we have two 5cm AT guns. I tried to keep them hidden into an ambush stance, and because they aren't the 3.7 guns, they can do some damage to T-34s and KVs, but they need to be within 200 meters, so I assigned a cone to them. We do have some machine gun units in support in case infantry decides to attack, and I also have our right flank covered over here, and two more 5cm guns, and they are also supported by machine gunners. On the outskirts of town, I just have a smorgasbord of some units to act as spotters for us. And then right here is our big gun, the 88. I've got him placed right in the center, and hopefully they'll roll some tanks right through here, and we'll open up on them and be able to do some damage. We'll find out what happens. Alright, so the engagement literally just started, and you can already see Soviet flares lighting up the sky on this side of the map. It does tell me they're going to be coming straight to Borky. They aren't going to worry about this square right here. It holds no objective point value. They're going to bypass it and come straight at us. That's fine. Hopefully they have some armor, because we do have this 88 placed perfectly. He has a beautiful field right across, or a beautiful view right across this field, excuse me. If we see some armor, we may be able to take quite a few out. I'm going to take this spotter right here. I'm going to tell him to not hide, so he has a better field of view. He is in trenches anyway, and if we have to re-hide him, we can. Alright, we have our first tank showing up. Look at that low profile on that 88. Beautiful. You can see where it's entrenched would be really difficult to hit, especially at these distances, which have to be close to a kilometer. It's a T-34 rolling down. Not sure if the 88 sees it. It's unbuttoned. And you see how that hatch is actually in the front of the T-34? All of the early T-34s were like that, and the tank crewmen hated them, because you like to have command of the field and have a 360-degree radius to see everything. And those prevented that, and the Soviets called them stuff buns because of that. They hated them. Oh, there goes the first shot. Another. Saw the infantry riding on the back. Buttoned up now. Hatch coming down. He's made contact both times. Looks like he hit the turret. And I think he decommissioned it. And I think that second T-34 got away. So we're going to have some infantry and armor rolling up through the town of Borky. We did eliminate that one T-34, so that is excellent. Now, as far as infantry, or anything defending this section of the town, we do have light defenses. We have an infantry squad right here. I'm going to wait a little bit before I tell them to open up. They're hiding in ambush position. Oh, somebody's lobbing shells at that 88's position. Looks like a KV. Oh, man, and head on from that range, that is going to be difficult. I don't know if they're going to be able to hit it from this range. The second shell, pretty close. You have to remember, though, at a kilometer, at these distances, the Soviet barrels, especially at this point in the war, were not designed as well. Oh, still short. They just weren't designed as well as the 88's barrel. So technically, the 88 should have the advantage, but they do have numerical superiority. Especially that thick KV armor from the front, it might be tough. Let's see if they can get a round off. Hide. You can see the infantry over here approaching slowly. Probing and filling it out. And you can just really see a good perspective from this distance how difficult it would be to hit that trench. It does look like they are slowly zeroing in on it, however, just missed. Oh. Looks like we're still there, however. Just missed again. I mean, we are pushing, you have to think, 1.1, 1.2 kilometers. He's having difficulty finding his target. That KV is showing its back. If they could plant one. That looks true. And looking back at the gun, looking where all those shells have been lobbed, but we're there in those trenches and it's just they're down low. The distance is so great, they're still fairly protected. They could just get out of one of these foxholes and hop over to the main one, but man, that would be extremely difficult. Every time you poke your head up, there's just a shell lobbed at you. This guy may be trying, but... Whew. Talk about suppression. Suppression via HE. Now here's the T-34 that got past us earlier. Looks like our gun's still operational. Eventually those KVs are going to run out of ammo. There's only so many rounds they have. They can't hit their target. They may just have to call it a day. But this T-34 in the back is just running around causing havoc. We'll go ahead and tell these troops to open up. Keeping an eye on that command wheel. Remember, if you have black on the command wheel, you can issue the order. Blue, partially. Red, no. Have these troops assault. It's really their only option. Oh. Oh, he just did it. Yeah, if they stayed in those trenches, it might buy them a little time, but inevitably they'll still be dead. I honestly think it's best to assault in these cases. At least some grenades can knock off the tracks or something. Then they can reposition. This guy's moving up. The T-34 trying to roll away. Get out of range of those handheld grenades. Here comes one right now. Oh, right on top. Doesn't look like it's enough, though. Okay, here's a flamethrower crew. I'd like to see if they can do anything against this T-34. In theory, they should be able to hit the engines, fry the engine compartments. The British actually ran tests in the war, during the course of the war, and they determined that it was possible to fry the engine. Oh, no. Oh, man. He just ate that shrapnel. Just imagine that. Oh, he has to be grievously wounded. Oh. Sure, his eardrums are gone. Looks like his partner to the left, still down. But he is back in action. I'm not sure how badly hurt he was by that shrapnel, but he's just trying to hide in that tall grass. You know, imagine, not everything can be visually represented. You know, there's limitations on graphics, but oh, he just threw that smoke. I'm not sure if that was smart. Draw some attention. I don't believe the T-34 can see him, but just trying to remain hidden. Just imagine having that tank on your back, knowing it's just a tinderbox ready to... Oh, and he's just going to go ahead and shoot that flame at him, right at the back of the engine. That grass working to hide him. He's going to move on up while the T-34 has his back exposed. Getting behind the smoke. Man, this guy is absolutely no limit. Cannot believe he ate that shrapnel at close range, and he's just going up to attack this T-34. I mean, really, he's in a do-or-die situation. Kill or be killed. There's really no retreating here. There you go, you see him silhouetted through that trail of smoke. He may have damaged the engine on the T-34. So now you can see the T-34 has cleared that creek bed and is rolling away. Man, that flamethrower crew. We'll have them take defense here in case the T-34 does come back around. We'll have some cover in that creek bed. Looks like there's only 2 people left on the 88, and that T-34 is swinging around right behind them. Perfect flanking position. To our detriment. Got a round off, though. It's surprising. Look at all those tanks in the distance. There are several. 8 or 9. Oh. Goner. So the T-34 is still rolling. Oh! Ooh! Nice. Taking some shots from those 5 centimeters off in the distance. Just barely missed. You can see the engine smoking. That ammunition may catch in a second if the smoke and the heat from the engine gets to the ammunition. And again, there's Gravity with none of those can animations. Everything is independent. Everything is graphically represented. So I'm not sure if he's decommissioned with that engine smoking. Here's this 88. Man, it did not fare too well. But those 5 centimeters are still shooting. Got some more T-34s rolling towards the town. More rounds from the 5 centimeters. Those machine guns. Oh. Ooh, there we go. Right on the track. These distances, you're really not going to do any damage to the T-34 with the 5 centimeters. We all know that, but we can knock off those tracks. See the tracers from the machine gunner. Another round right in the side. Even from the side, it's not going to do anything. You really have to aim for the tracks in this case. There we go. Ooh, now counterfire from the T-34. Had a piece just fly off. Officer in tow. Ooh, that T-34 is eating it. And it looks like his tracks may be off. There we go. That's exactly what you try to do with those 5 centimeters. Again, tank without tracks is as good as a dead tank. You can just see the tracers from those AP rounds flying past the T-34s. Hit the T button, click and drag to assign a priority target. You can just imagine the balls you had to have these long-distance engagements. I mean, do you know how tempted you'd be to just abandon that gun when you see those T-34s rolling down? Similarly, it's the same for the Soviets. You see those AP rounds flying at you. It takes balls to sit there, fire back, knowing you could just easily avoid the situation by running away. They're really getting lit up now. Return fire still. It looks like they may have silenced them. No, still firing. Right at the turret. Oh. High. It's almost lobbing them at this distance. You can just see the arc, the trajectory. Really not going to do anything against that armor, but I mean, you're exposed anyway, you might as well take the chance. Maybe they can get a side shot here. Got it. Looks like they're just trying to take off the tracks. Again, a sound strategy. Man, those T-34s are fast. Ah, man. Gone. We still have, as you can see, at least 8 or 9 tanks remaining, even after we decommissioned all of those earlier. We have the infantry up here. Still ready. Got that flamethrower crew. I believe what I may do is have them hide right here. Tell them to take defense. Shift click and then tell them to hide. And then give them a small cone of fire. About 100 meters. See if they can still do some damage to any tanks that get close. Gonna have to get scrappy. And going back to that British study, they said it never happened in the field as far as taking a tank out with a flamethrower, but it's feasible. It was possible to do, and honestly, when you look at the scale of the Eastern Front, especially the Eastern Front in particular, especially where things weren't documented as well or as thoroughly, excuse me, I bet it did happen several times. I bet several tanks were knocked out by flamethrowers and just never got recorded. So you can see him crawling for position. There he is. We do still have this pat gun available. So those 5 centimeters did do some damage. 2 or 3 of them lost their tracks as a result of the 5 centimeter. It's not impossible to do anything against them, even at range. I think I'm going to move them up to here. That's what happens when you skip leg day, Hans. Oh.
Da drüben!
So they do see the target. Really don't know if that was the best idea. Because they were hidden, I believe. There's no point in just wasting, expending ammunition and rounds. We've got one here, here, and here. Now you could imagine trying to spot those without binoculars. Especially with the T-34. That's why I'm not sure if it was wise for the pack to fire. No going back now, though. And there we go. Head on from that distance was just suicide. But just to give you an idea of the distances that you are looking at, we'll go ahead and select this unit. You can press this right here to see the distance. And say you're looking at, again, a kilometer. About the same distance that the 88 was from the T-34s in the initial part of the engagement. So here comes our lone T-34. Heading back into the creek bed. We go back, and you can see that we do have our flamethrower crew. The brave squad that already had a direct encounter with that tank. Took some shrapnel, and he still went after it. Shot some flames at it, trying to decommission that engine. Set up a firing cone here, just in case any of the support guys try to use rifles. I don't think they would, but I'm going to limit the use of the flamethrower, shorten the range. We do have some infantry moving up here, opposite end of the town. We have a machine gun crew right there. I was going to try to move them, but we can't go to that part of the map. I don't know what's going on with that tank here. I mean, it's just slowly rolling down into the bed. They may have lost their engine? I'm not sure. I know the turret's still working. Yeah, the turret is operating fine. So, anyway, it looks like for now the T-34 and the armor is still holding back a little bit. They're not directly advancing on the town, and there's no reason to. They don't need to risk it. You have to keep in mind, those semi-transparent black squares, we can't give up these squares anyway, so they really don't have an incentive to come into the town. We do have this 5 centimeter gun right here. If there was a way we could move them. Let's see. We'll hotkey him to control 1. Have him take the road. Here. And then we'll decide what to do with him. T-34 is still rolling. You can see our squad highlighted right there. One thing about the T-34, it has a kind of a wide body and a low base, low center of gravity. It's difficult to get it stuck. If you took something like a Panzer III, a Panzer IV, especially something like a Martyr in Graviteam and in real life, they're notorious for getting stuck. And the T-34 is not going to do that. It's going to be solid over rough terrain. Eking up. Cautiously. Rightly so. And he just has no idea. I love these little mini duels. You have this huge operation, but you have this highlight right here, this flamethrower crew versus this T-34. It's just incredible, the stories that play out in these campaigns. I love it. I eat it up. Eat that shit up. Again, notice I'm not trying to force anything as far as orders go. You have to avoid micromanaging. Black flare. Contact. And I believe what I'm going to do is if he gets in front of them, I'll go ahead and have the squad come in from the back and assault. But I do want to wait until the T-34 is past their field of view. Just remember how limited your vision is in these tanks, especially buttoned up. Alright. Let's have him assault. Put this British theory to the test. Can the flamethrower take out the T-34? You have to remember the T-34 was kind of porous too, in the way it was constructed. So some flames may be able to get into the tank. See him moving up in the background. Stealthily. Oh, there goes a grenade. The assault begins. It just lights him up with that flame. There it goes. Just continuing. Paint's gone. Oh, he is not letting up. He's going to empty his entire tank. Oh man, and I just wonder how long the T-34 can take that, and the crew. Still going. Oh, now you can hear the screams of the occupants. Brutal. I don't see anyone trying to exit via the hatches. Oh, there it goes, there it goes. And now the inevitable firefight. Just trying to keep down. Cannot believe that guy took a shell, went back, got the best of that T-34 in the end. I mean, we're talking Knight's Cross level of accomplishment here. I mean, that was an incredible story we just got to witness play out. Just trying to keep down those tankers, firing with their grease guns, whatever the Soviet equivalent is. And now that eerie dichotomy, the silence, birds chirping in the background. Making sure that tank is finished off if there's any Soviets hiding in the grass. Oh, that may be from his own troops. I think we have those, yeah, those machine gunners in the distance, trying to take out the Soviet tankers. Whoa, whoa, buddy, you've already proved yourself. You've already walked through the flame once, don't have to do it again. Alright, looking at the after-action report, Graviteam calculates the result as a draw. Again, I never put too much stock in those. I don't really think it means much. I think overall it's your strategic victory that matters. You know, a lot of these are just Pyrrhic victories. So you can see right here the weighted platoons were 144 to 591. It's a result of all that armor. And we did have some AT capabilities this round, and we were able to take out 5 tanks. So that definitely did work in our favor. Unfortunately, they destroyed pretty much all of our AT. I think we had a lone 5 centimeter remaining. At 88, I mean, it's just, I think what happens is, you know, our big mistake was early in the game. We kind of spread apart our 88s, and we never really got any enemy armor to funnel into kill zones. And as a result, where they were spread out and we never got them funneled into kill zones, you just had this concentrated armor. And anytime, you know, 3 or 4 turns in, anytime an 88 or a capable AT gun was up against armor, there was, you know, 10 other tanks going up against this 188. So they just never really had a chance to return fire. They'd get 1 or 2 shots off and then be completely suppressed and dead, you know, within 15, 20 seconds, no matter the range, short, long, doesn't really matter. Alright, so for this engagement, I do have my flanks protected with some infantry, and they're mainly there to serve as observers and spotters. If you look, the primary focus of my defensive force, however, is this area right here, concentrated all in the center. And if you've noticed, I've placed pretty much every single one of my AT units available to me right here together in the center. Now, the reason I did that, and the reason I put them in this open field where there's not a whole lot of cover, is just for one reason and one reason alone. It's because of the field of view. If you look right here, you can see they pretty much have a view of the entire battlefield, whereas if they were placed in any of these positions back through here, they would not, so they would be limited in the area they could defend. And the reason I placed them all together instead of spreading them out and giving them more potential to see actually more armor that were spread out is because, if you remember, there is a lot of armor concentrated in this area. So I know in this assault, if you see 1 tank, there's going to be 10 more. And it's no good having 1 AT gun going up against 10 tanks, even if you have the better gun, if you're upgunned, because by the time you get off 1 shot, those 10 tanks have already got off 10, odds are you're going to lose that engagement. I figured if I concentrated all of my AT, they'd be able to at least get 4 or 5 shots off together against their 10 armored units, and we'd have a little bit better, higher odds, just if you're going strictly as far as how, as far as the numbers game go. Now, looking over here, you can see I did place my smallest AT gun. It's a 3.7 centimeter. Placed him up in advance of my other AT guns. Put him right here, hoping that maybe just some armor would come rolling down this road. This tree line would act as a screen like I've been trying to do in recent turns. Basically, you'd have armor roll up and he'd be just a couple meters away, hitting them from the side or the back by the time they're exposed. I did place a lot of infantry with these AT guns. I do know we're exposed out in the open, but I just think it's our best bet. We have a clear field of fire, and I think with these concentrated AT weapons, especially where a lot of them are field artillery units, those 10.5 centimeter guns, the 5 centimeter guns, and then we have 188 right here, I think it just increases our odds. Now, the only other thing I did differently that I normally don't do in engagements is I have 3 artillery spotters. Here's 0 right here, and then 9, so I have them set up to hit this field right here, just in case there's any troops that try to advance. I'm going to move him up right here, because I know a lot of times, let's go ahead and remove that right there. I know a lot of times, when you get into these engagements, especially where I have the other weakness I have is these troops are really up close to the front lines. Sometimes you can have their units mixed in, like they might even have some units spawn here, or like here right on top of us. Hopefully the infantry will take care of them in that case. Or even armor, because sometimes it just gets mixed up. These aren't clearly defined lines, at least as far as it pertains to the AI, and he can spawn in any of these areas, and oftentimes does spawn out right in the front. So I want to cover this with artillery as well. But besides these two, I have a 3rd artillery unit as well, and if you've noticed, I have him zeroing in into 10 different locations, and that is the maximum amount you're allowed to zero in on. The reason I did that is because I have 2 artillery pieces to take care of me initially. This 3rd piece, I want him to zero in on all these positions back here, because chances are the Soviets have some static support positions in the back of their lines. So what I'm going to do is just try to put out feelers, tentacles everywhere, see what I can find. And if we are able to hold off this initial assault, we want to launch a counterattack of our own, we're likely going to find those support units back here waiting for us. But if we have a bunch of zeroed in artillery lanes, hopefully one of these will overlap with their positions. We can go ahead and nail them. So I just wanted to give you what my line of thinking was there. I'll go ahead and start the engagement, and as soon as something happens, I'll let you know. I actually expect the engagement to start fairly soon, especially if the enemy's concentrated in this area, because we're so far up towards the front lines, or this area over here. Alright, so the engagement has begun, and I'm just waiting now for the Soviet flares. Those green flares light up the sky and see where they're going to initiate their attack. So we have one here, and then here, over here. So we got some right on top of us, actually. I mean, right on top of us. Another back here, which is kind of what I expected. Maybe the artillery will take care of the group back here. However, I don't see the units. Oh, right here on top of each other as well. Oh, but we have this 3.7 opening up. I believe I heard the sound of it hitting a tank, but I can't see anything myself. It's not showing us what he's shooting at yet. That's definitely armor. Oh man. He's got a perfect flanking position behind this screen, so that did work. You can see him right there. It looks like Valentine's. Got a tank here as well. Oh, you can hear that field artillery go off and hit it. He hits him right in the back. We're in a really advantageous position. Another shot. Oh, you can just see this AT, or these tanks getting lit up by our artillery. Here's our 88. We have our infantry in support. Taking the shot. Right at that Valentine. You can see the 88 right here. Trying to find his next target. Beautiful. Hit it. Looks like he got hit with an HE round as well. And it looks like they ditched it, unfortunately. Oh, head on. You just saw that tank explode. I don't know if it hit an ammunition compartment or what, but that is up in flames. It looks like it did. So it looks like our 88's still in action. We have this AT gun shooting as well. Oh, lovely side shot. Looks like our 3.7 just shot from there, getting that crossfire going on. Oh my god, just destroying them. I don't know if those Valentines have exposed ammunition compartments, but that's the second one that just lit up. Got another shot right here. And our 88 right here. Our other AT gun right here is just taking these tanks out. Hopefully they can stay around long enough. Shot right there. Oh, and that Valentine just lit up the 88. It looks like he hit the guard. Oh, the 88 fires back, and oh, just another explosion. Blowing them to pieces. Man, that was incredible. Trying to find another target. I don't know what he's looking at, or if there's any targets left. I think these two, no, they're not on fire and on flames. Just see that ammunition exploding over there. I love it. None of the cane animations. Look at that. That ammunition just going off one by one, causing explosions. And that is just a tank graveyard right there. There are still two, well, it looks like three of them that are operable, but if you notice, they're above the crest of the hill. We'll check over here on this engagement. Looks like these units covered the Soviet infantry that spawned right on top of them, but there's another group back through here. Just gonna see Zero is firing here, so they may be able to actually hit this tank from the top. I'm not sure if there's any infantry over here. Oh man, we do have some tanks rolling up from the side, and this looks like incendiary rounds that the Soviets placed. If you remember earlier, I said be careful about placing troops in town because they will send those artillery rounds right to these troops. Now, if these are light tanks, we may be able to take them out with handheld weaponry, or at least take the tracks off their T-34s. That's going to be an issue. Maybe I can get these troops to take the fence back here. Get them away from some of those incendiary rounds. Looks like it's already lost its track, though. It's unloading on it. And they've abandoned it. Let's go across the battlefield, see how we're looking. You can see our infantry here supporting. AT still going off. That's a 5 centimeter. You can tell by the long barrel, so that's not even a 3.7. In our 88. Hit a 6 to see what everyone's looking at. So there is some infantry coming up to attack, but we have our support infantry here. These tanks are going to wreak some havoc. There's not much we can do. This position, though, I'm very happy with. And it looks like, actually, this might work out very well for us. It looks like the T-34s are coming up along this road. So you can see some infantry platoons or infantry squads in support. It looks like these T-34s that are going to roll up around this road. If they decide to come up through here, or behind this tree line, you can see they'll run right into our own AT guns. I don't know. It doesn't look like these Valentines and this T-60 want to come up through here. I don't blame them. Just check out the concentration of that infantry there, though. I want to see... Oh no, that's unfortunate. We don't have anything. Yep, here comes the T-34s. I'm really hoping they come straight up here through this field. Now see, remember, this is an example of where we talked earlier about how the T-34s and most Soviet armor didn't even have radios. They had to communicate by flags. This would be an example of where the AT would have a huge advantage, because if the AI is smart, they'll know there's a huge attack going on up here. These T-34s would come around back this way, try to flank the AT. Historically, however, these T-34s wouldn't even know that, because they'd have no way of communicating with this armor. And I mean, they'd have just as much chance of rolling up right here into this ambush of these of that 88, which means 2 more dead T-34s instead of 2 dead AT guns. So that's just an example of how, ooh, these troops right here, maybe they can throw some grenades, knock them off the track. Most of the times they won't. Oh, here he goes. He threw one. Hit it. Track's still on. So yeah, these T-34s are going to come up and flank, it looks like. But that's an example of those soft factors I was talking about earlier. Now, this is 42, early 42, so the platoon commanders of those tank platoons probably do have radios, but you can just imagine how difficult it would be to coordinate your position relative to his and the optimal road to take to flank. And the T-34s aren't even concerned with them, they're just going to roll through the main part of the engagement. I think any infantry attack is going to be repulsed. Where those T-34s are rolling through. I'm wondering if I should go ahead and reface my AT. Just to be careful. Let's see how much ammo our AT has to begin with. We have 34 AP rounds. You can see our mortars going off, launching them. Explosions right over there for any Soviet infantry that tries to support. Another one dropping. Got to keep my eye on these T-34s, because the second they swing around here, I've got to have my AT guns ready. It looks like they're not going to do that, though. It looks like they're going to go straight to the town. I'm going to try to keep these guys down here on the other side of the buildings. Try to minimize their risk and exposure to those T-34s. I'd like to keep them hidden, honestly, if I could. Tell them to hide. Looks like our AT gun is firing. They must have found some armor. Wow, through the trees. I did not expect that. Let's see. Hit F6 so we can see if they're hitting them. Oh, he's rotating his gun. Not sure at what. I don't think he has a view on this. Well, he may. This AT guy, they still swung around. But I just don't think they really have true fields of fire. These, oh wow, T-34 is coming through the tree line. He may. See if we can find him. Here he is. And he is. He's taking the shots. Keep in mind, it's a 5cm against a T-34. They're usually, only effective within, I think it's 200 meters. But where he's turned around, he might get a good shot off. And it looks like they abandoned it. Ooh, might have been a wise choice. Let's see what else we've got. Right here, T-60. Right in the tail. Did make contact. And again, contact. And I believe that nope, didn't knock it out. Got mortars dropping on it. It's going to be a shame if it ends up being a T-60 that takes out those AT emplacements, won't it? See a wheel just fly off. Or a gear. And the crew may be knocked out. I don't know if the tank is actually decommissioned. It looks like it isn't. Oh. Let's head over to these AT positions and see if they got knocked out. Yep. Knocked out by a T-60. Man, what a crazy vista. You see the smoke columns. He's taking his shots. I don't know if that was that same T-60. It was. Got him. You can just see just pieces of that tank falling apart. And the hatch is open. They've abandoned it. Hit F6. Looks like maybe that's a T-34. Oh wow, they're back on their gun. Ooh! That tank is just... Tank's a winner, man. That's a Soviet tank if I've ever seen one. Looks like it's finally gone. Hit F6. Decommissioned. So we still have 2 AT units left. Yeah, we don't want to forget about these tanks up here. Man, now here comes some infantry pushing up. Thankfully we have our support units. You can see line and weight down here. I'm going to go ahead, let's see what we got here. Just put some right around this AT, just in case. I think we're safe from attack, but tell him to take defense here. Take defense. Yeah, we even have machine gun on our flank over here. Looks like an MG-34. Where is he? Yep, excellent. Any Soviet troop on the horizon, you can see him. Oh, look, he's even lighting that grass on fire. Hit him. I think he hit him. So yeah, as soon as these Soviet troops crest the horizon, you have this guy just spraying. Look at those physics on those bullets again. You see the Valentine tanks in the background. I feel like we've taken out a ton of tanks. Ooh, got something going off here. Even though we even have this 3.7 left, that's incredible. You know what I'd really like to do is sneak him up. Oh, there's infantry right there. And they're firing. Make sure they can fire at infantry. Yeah. Let's see what they do. So these guys are going to fire with their rifles, obviously, but now I'm telling them they can use their AT weaponry, their HE rounds on infantry if they choose to. Trying to see where our mortar squad was. Right here. They're out of ammo. However, I was going to see if I could have their commander, who is right here, tell them to lay down some fire right here. Let's see if we have any artillery help. Doesn't look like it. I want to see if we placed artillery here. Not even close. Way too long. Way too far out of range. Not worth it. Because that is a lot of infantry coming up. I'm going to have to reposition. Put somewhere over here. I don't know where those T-34s were either, but right now we're still holding the town. I'll take what we've got, you know, but I'll tell him he can fire at infantry if he wishes. And he can. Lob some of those HE rounds. If he fires at infantry, I mean, that flat gun is just going to rip individually infantry units apart. Just imagine getting hit with Flak 88s meant for taking down B-17s. You can see this guy still just lighting everybody up. Make sure he has good ammo. He's down at 35, so he actually is starting to run out, but I think he has enough to hold everyone down. And you can't see all the troops, obviously. They're out of our fog of war. But it looks like this Soviet attack's just retreating. They're just trying to get out. You can just hear soldiers dying. I mean, look at all this infantry that's been destroyed, too. You forget about the infantry that was supporting in this assault just because of all these tanks. Man, even those 88s just opened up, and it seemed like for a while, every single Valentine they hit just completely burst into flames. I mean, they were violent explosions, and I don't know, I guess it was just hitting the ammunition compartments, and every time they'd hit them, I mean, just boom. I mean, explosion. So I have to look that up. If anybody knows, let me know in the comments if the Matildas had a tendency to have their ammo compartments explode. I feel like I think the Shermans had a tendency to do that, but again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never heard of the Valentines doing that. I always heard it was the Shermans that would just burst into flames because of their ammo compartments, but it looks like our Wehrmacht position right here is just as strong as ever. Feeling really good about it. Really like the way the Graviteam does flames. Just such a brilliant, bright, intense light. Smoke columns. Gorgeous. I think we've held this position. And you can just see how long this operation's been and all the ground we've covered. I mean, look at all these artillery rounds. See them just pot marks all over the battlefield. Turn around, look behind you. There's tanks, bodies, more artillery rounds. Looks like infantry's still trying to push up sun. That attack is just dead in the water. Okay, so we nabbed up a draw. And if you look at the weighted platoons, actually was very even. I'm surprised by that because even though we had some AT units, they just had a huge amount of tanks. And I really feel that engagement came out about as good as it could. Knocked out 13 of their tanks in that engagement. That's just excellent. Couldn't ask for more. We had perfect placement. You know, we've gotten lucky. It's funny because it seems like in the last few engagements, our placement of our AT weapons has really worked out for us, whereas in the beginning of this operation, it just seemed like we couldn't catch a break. And now, you know, luck's finally starting to shift. That's why I don't really like, you know, blaming things on either luck or fortune, because in the end, I don't really believe in those things. I think it all evens out. You know, in the beginning, we were unlucky, in quotes. Now we're getting lucky, in quotes again. It just all kind of evens out. Granted, it would have been much nicer if we could have had this earlier in the operation. Maybe had more leeway to maneuver and not just constantly fall back, but it's fine. We had 150 casualties compared to their 152. Would have liked to maybe induce a little more casualties than that, but with the lost tanks, I will go ahead and take it. Let's go ahead and see what ground we have or lost. And it looks like everything's probably going to stay about the same, which it is. So I'll go ahead and take 13 dead tanks with the ground staying the same. There may not be a lot of armor left. I think they still have some a little bit east of this position, maybe some KVs and T-34s, but I think that really the main spearhead of their assault forces has now just been decimated. And thus concludes far and away the most difficult operation I have ever played with Graviteam, including the old Operation Star. I've played them all except for the fairly recent Against the Tide, and none of them hold a candle to the defensive nightmare that is this campaign. You can see we clearly lost the operation 937 to 574, and we never even had the opportunity to initiate a viable counterattack. We tried to hold the town of Borky and mimic what occurred historically, and even then we split the town. And to be honest, it's a good thing the operation ended when it did, because I'm not sure how much longer we could have held out against the absolute onslaught that we faced before we had a complete collapse of our forces. Looking at our statistics, you can see we managed to destroy 70 Soviet tanks despite being massively undergunned, but we lost almost the exact same amount of troops as the Soviets due to them being tossed into the meat grinder for which we had no answer. We finished the final turn with the major town of Borky split, the Wehrmacht with 39 square kilometers under their control compared to the Soviet 85. Now, despite these insurmountable odds against the mighty Soviet steamroller, there were still plenty of mistakes I made during this campaign that I would correct on a second playthrough. Had we anticipated and remedied these mistakes, maybe it wouldn't have won us the operation, but would have allowed us to at least confidently secure the town and ensure the mutual destruction of the Soviet forces. Again, I don't know if it's possible to win this one as the Wehrmacht, but I do know that at least one person on the forums, Zephyr, managed to destroy over 100 Soviet tanks, which was enough to collapse the Red Army's inertia and ability to carry on the offensive. So, let's review those mistakes. Well, I knew the 10.5 centimeter LEF H-guns could be used for anti-tank purposes rather than artillery in a pinch. I didn't adopt the mindset that it would be their primary role until it was way too late, especially in regards to our west flank. I may have been able to hold and push back had I done this earlier, especially if I had used them to ambush on reverse slopes, in much the same way we did in that early engagement with the 88. You can see here that one took out a Matilda despite my best attempts to sabotage and have them used exclusively as artillery. I should have heeded Forchek's words on page 42. The Germans were once again unable to stop the Soviet heavy tanks and forced to use 8.8 centimeter flak and 10 centimeter howitzers in the anti-tank role. 2. The new indirect order system. Now this one is more of a failure to read and fully comprehend new gameplay mechanics, and it worked to my detriment. I didn't always remember that stationary units would no longer entrench on their own unless I specifically told them to do so, and ended up squandering one of our only breaks in the game when we received those 2 tank battle groups. I mismanaged the system on the operational screen, and it thus sent them into battle into an unprepared arrive state, where they were the ones getting ambushed rather than the opposite. This was huge. Seeing that we had vastly inferior battlefield resources, compared to the Soviets, any mismanagement at all would be and was catastrophic. Afterwards, I did some digging and believe that I did find the rules to the new mechanic, so I'm going to paste them on the screen, and you can pause the video and review them if you're confused by the indirect order system yourself. Three, voluntarily giving up ground. The assumption that we would be able to lick our wounds and counterattack. If you remember, I assumed that giving up some objectives in order to fall back into a shortened defensive belt would work to our advantage. My thinking was that we could concentrate our forces and have stronger interior lines, allowing us to more easily defeat the Soviet advance and launch our own more effective counterattack to regain those objectives once we had exhausted the enemy forces. In reality, there was no stopping this juggernaut, and we should have fought tooth and nail for every objective. Our only real hope was to slow down the enemy advance, and giving up that precious ground proved foolish in the end. 4. Lack of concentration in anti-tank units. Now this was a big one, perhaps the most glaring mistake. I didn't concentrate my AT until late in the game, and you saw the difference that it made once we did. We knocked out tons of tanks, but at that point, too little, too late. I should have concentrated all of my AT, put the 88s, 5cm, and the 10cm howitzers together, and that way they would have had a chance against swarms of Soviet armor. When they were isolated, as I did in the beginning, we ended up with cases of 188 against 10 T-34s, and the 88 would get destroyed before they even had a chance to get off a second shot. I naively thought in the beginning of the operation that it would be prudent to spread my AT out in the individual engagements. The thinking was that they would cover all possible points of penetration. In the end, none of that mattered, because the armor was going to penetrate my lines regardless, and it only served to weaken my local defenses. I would have ultimately been wiser to focus the AT together and punch back whenever the opportunity arose. 5. Effective use of air superiority. If you remember my historical overview of this battle, we mentioned how essential of a factor the Luftwaffe played in air superiority and providing close air support. Now, in Graviteam, it's true that you cannot control when and where you receive close air support. It comes when it comes, which I do like because it's realistic. But, having said that, you need spotters for that air support. Looking back, I may have been able to increase the efficiency of the airstrikes by putting more command units into my battle groups. If you recall, command units, while not as combat effective as infantry, are able to attach air/artillery spotters to their squads. If I placed a second command unit in a platoon when possible, rather than infantry, it may have helped increase communication with air support when we did have it. No, I'm not certain of how effective it would have been in practice, but it would have been for sure better than assigning an infantry squad whose only use would be able to get thrown into the meat grinder. I think overall we really caught some bad breaks with air support. We only saw Stukas 3 or so times during the entire operation, and out of that, I think only once did they come when armor was present. And considering that we're dealing with massed armor in about 75% of our engagements, and the Luftwaffe only showed up for about 5 minutes to attack that armor in 2 days, I think it's fair to bring up. So I'm curious to know, what do you think my biggest mistakes were? How did you manage in your own playthrough of Fateful Strike? Has anyone tried as the Soviets yet? Remember, the key to improving is recognizing your mistakes. Recognition is the first step in isolating your problems and thus being able to target them. In any case, I can't wait until the next DLC arrives. I'll be playing through it immediately, having learned from the mistakes made here, and I plan to come away with a victory. That's it for now. Thanks as always for watching. Please subscribe if you like the content, and I'll be able to see you again whenever Gravy puts out some more delicious DLC. I know this was a long one. Trust me, it was an absolute monster to put together, so I really appreciate you sticking through. Have a great day all.